Voting for the first phase of Jammu and Kashmir elections took place today. These are the first assembly elections taking place in over a decade and 5 years after the historic nullification of Article 370 on 5th August 2019, which also made Jammu and Kashmir into a union territory. While globally these elections are being monitored closely and several foreign diplomats visiting Jammu and Kashmir in the last few weeks, the polls are likely to see brisk voting similar to what was witnessed during the recently concluded Lok Sabha elections. Statehood restoration remains a critical issue during these elections, commitment for which has been made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah, as well as the NC Congress alliance in the run-up to the elections in the region. While the BJP, PDP and National Conference and Congress alliance remain the key players in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly polls, independents are likely to play a pivotal role in the post-poll dynamics, especially Engineer Rashid's AIP and the Jamaat-e-Islami. Who will be the biggest winner in the Jammu and Kashmir elections? While the BJP, PDP, NC Congress alliance remains key, let's see what exactly happens in these elections. Now joining me on the panel to discuss this and more are Ahmed Ali Fayyaz, senior journalist from Jammu and Kashmir, and Danish Iqbal, social activist and former spokesperson of the Jammu and Kashmir National Conference. And finally, we also have a third panelist, Rameez Makhdoomi, political analyst and journalist, joining us from Jammu and Kashmir. Ahmed Ali Fayyaz, if I can, in fact, go across to you. The early trends, today saw 30 to 40% of voting actually taking place across the constituencies in Jammu and Kashmir. Is this a positive trend, or how do you see the voting trends really? We saw what happened in Baramulla and other areas during the Lok Sabha elections with close to 60% voting. Do you see this time as well people thronging the booths from early morning, and perhaps the 50 or the 60% mark would be crossed?
According to me, it must cross 70%. It will be the largest ever turnout after 1987.
Incredible.
There are the things which used to hamper the election activity are not there today. We have seen the largest turnout in the assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir in 1987, and before that in the Lok Sabha elections of 1984. So in 5 years, that is when the next Lok Sabha elections were held in 1989, it nosedived to 3 to 5% only. There was total alienation, and thereafter you saw there was eruption of militancy. Nobody was interested in elections. It was very difficult for someone to ask the people to vote. So there were no elections, not even the Lok Sabha elections of 1991. And when the Lok Sabha elections were held for the first time after 1990, in April 1996, National Conference did not participate. The voter turnout was low, and thereafter when the assembly elections were held, it was the security forces who got people out of their homes, and because of that there was a modest turnout. Had they not moved the people out, nobody, I believe, would have come out of home, because there were threats, there was an aggressive anti-election campaign, and there were killings, kidnappings, everything happened. People were brought down from polls with AK-47 rifles. So all these things happened there, and ironically, some of the people who did it all are now today themselves contesting the elections. So a major change has taken place because of the abrogation of Article 370 in August 2019. We witnessed these boycott calls and low turnout in the assembly elections of 2002, 2008, and but it picked up slightly in 2014. It was a modest turnout, but again it went down. Had you held elections in 2015 or 16 or 17, so there would have been absolutely low. You saw it when the by-elections of Lok Sabha took place in April 2017. The turnout was absolutely low. I think 9% in Srinagar Central when Farooqullah won and defeated Tariq Hamid Kara. I think it was a by-election that time, right. And the authorities could not hold the elections in South Kashmir that time because they had scheduled the elections of South Kashmir. So it went down. But in 2000 19 Lok Sabha elections, there was some activity. It picked up to an extent, but after 2019, all those factors, including the boycott calls from the separatists to Hurriyat Conference, from Pakistan, the threats from militants, killings, everything stopped. Everything, in spite of the fact that National Conference and PDP and other parties kept on saying that this is because of the fear. But as a journalist reporting things in Srinagar, I can say that these things do not happen only out of fear. We must give credit to the BJP government for neutralizing all those factors, the threats, everything. But the problem is that with this year's Lok Sabha elections, when Engineer Rashid contested elections in Baramulla, they did exactly the reverse of it. In the last 5 years, they had successfully, whatever they used to say, they had destroyed not only terrorism but also its ecosystem.
Right.
But this time there is a completely different narrative. Everybody is competitively saying zulum, zalim. So without naming India, this is all directed. They are generating a sentiment against India, and it gives them vote. We have seen it in the Lok Sabha elections up to this year, and this is also going to happen.
Fair enough. Ahmed Ali Fayyaz, I'll come back to you. A very important point. You are taking us to the history of elections in Jammu and Kashmir, how things have transpired, and what kind of a wave is really out there. The kind of competitive politics that is being seen, the politics of zulm, really. Where is it directed at? Who will it benefit is the big question. Danish Iqbal, coming to you now. We've seen mushrooming of independence really this time around. From Engineer Rashid's AIP to Jamaat-backed candidates, particularly in South Kashmir, and several others in Srinagar, Junaid and others who are contesting. How significant do you think would be the independence this time around? Because it seems that Omar Abdullah was also, he also felt threatened, when we saw that video of him actually calling out to the people, an emotional appeal, holding his cap in front of them, almost begging in front of the voters. What does this suggest? Do you think that the NC, which is potentially the most important party right now in Jammu and Kashmir as far as votes are concerned, are they feeling threatened with the independence rising?
Well, Aditya, of course they are threatened. Of course, National Conference is threatened. It's very apparent by the statements of their top leadership. What is, I think, the most important point here is that National Conference did not win elections in Jammu and Kashmir because of the turnout. National Conference has won elections because of the boycott. You've had worst phases of boycott in the recent history of Jammu and Kashmir. In 2017, there was something around 2.4% turnout. In 2019, there was something like 30%, 25% turnout in Srinagar. So it always played to the advantage of the National Conference because the cadre of the National Conference has never boycotted. Now, after what you saw after Engineer Rashid's victory in the last parliamentary elections, the people who had aspiration in contesting election, who had aspiration in politics, thought that now that the boycott voter has decided to come out, the voters who didn't probably had the faith in elections on the ballot have now probably decided that elections are the way forward, and that's I think one of the main reasons for all of these independents who have now who have now come in the field. And Aditya, I've always thought in last 3-4 months that Kashmiris have what's a big change in Kashmir is that Kashmiris have realized the usefulness of elections. They've realized the usefulness of registering their vote. Earlier they would fight hard battles with the system, but it was outside the system. Now what I think Engineer Rashid has also done that. Has rather significantly done that the fight for your rights, that fight for your dignity, the fight for your space within the larger national mainstream has to be within the system. That's why I think a lot of people, you would see a lot of independents from not only from Jamaat, but other independents, who were earlier part of the National Conference, the PDP. There are 2-3 gentlemen, I think, in South Kashmir who were earlier part of the PDP, now in the now contesting as independents. so there's of course the traditional mainstream who depended on the boycott would clearly be threatened. Of course they would be threatened. They are scared of the higher turnout. They're scared of people coming out to vote. But what you have to also understand, Aditya, is that the higher turnout, maybe the higher than 1977, is because that it's somehow the people's protest on the ballot today,
Right.
because the deniability of a political agency to a Kashmiri voter that was denied in the last 10 years has now been restored, and Kashmiri doesn't frankly want to waste this opportunity.
Fair enough. Danish Iqbal, I'll come back to you to understand what does this really mean to work under the system, under the perhaps ambit of the Indian Constitution. You might have grievances, but there are mechanisms perhaps within the Constitution to address that. Rameez Makhdoomi, if I can come to you, do you feel this change in South Kashmir? Do you feel that there is a certain kind of a shift happening in South Kashmir? I received videos from this morning from media in South Kashmir, which suggested that the candidates backed by the Jamaat are actually talking about how Indian they feel and how they believe in the Indian Constitution. Do you think that this is a reality that is taking shape, or do you think this is perhaps just a symbolic gesture, just for a few days?
Well, I guess the biggest positive of this election is that Kashmiris are learning the usefulness of elections, as Danish rightly said. It is a very optimistic sign for the democratic credentials that whosoever NC, PDP, BJP or Engineer, their supporters are thronging the voting booths and casting their votes. I believe the larger the number of candidates is good for democracy and peace, and it can kill the anger of those angry masses as they find a vote as an alternative to address their sufferings or grievances against the state or for the state. So the contesting of large number of parties, be it Engineer Rashid, be it Sajad Loan, is a good sign, and everybody's supporter should get a chance to go to polling booth, which has not happened due to boycott in the previous decades. It's a good sign. Jamaat Islami is a grassrooted party. It has its own voters like National Conference. But as a journalist, I believe National Conference is the strongest political force in this elections, as it has a pan-Jammu and Kashmir presence, followed by Congress, and Engineer Rashid and likes of Sajad Loan will also be factors in this election who can grab a few seats. Engineer Rashid, to me, is a factor in North Kashmir, not so much in South Kashmir, but he can give us surprises, as his politics has been full of surprises. It's good that that non-dynastical faces are also getting a chance to contest. And in the previous 5 years, many good things have happened, killings have lessened, but there was always a grievance that genuine representatives of people are not seen who are elected through democracy, and only selected youth icons propped up are being seen. Now it's a healthy sign that those who will get votes from people whatsoever, be they from NC, be they from BJP or PDP, will get a chance to represent people, and it's a healthy sign for democracy that such large number of parties, even those who were angry with the state, are contesting, because it could be the first pivotal step taken towards the conflict resolution or towards peace. I am not of the view that we need to bar any ideology from contesting. The vote is and contesting elections is better than any form of violence in any civilized system of the world.
Fair enough, Rameez. Important points there. But Danish, coming back to you, you said something very interesting, that people are understanding, especially Engineer Rashid, that they want to, work under the system, under the ambit perhaps of the Indian Constitution. Does this mean in any way that this is perhaps the last nail in the coffin for the separatists in Jammu and Kashmir? Because, many also understand that Engineer Rashid has taken that boycott vote. Engineer Rashid has taken that kind of a grievance that the larger people have with the system, and he has also emerged as someone who could be a separatist but still believes in the Indian Constitution and wants to work with Indian democracy.
No, absolutely, Aditya. Absolutely. I staunchly believe that the greatness of our country, the greatness of the Constitution of the country, affords the luxury of accommodating a variety of contrarian set of views, a variety of views that might apparently not be in sync with the dominant narrative, but is something that the Constitution of the country will always afford. I've always believed that you should embrace everybody, in Kashmir. If somebody has given up violence, if somebody has surrendered, if somebody's wanting to be and willing to participate with the constitutional institutions of the country, he should be given the opportunity. And what's also important, Aditi, here is that you're tracking Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir more than anybody else. You would have seen something very interesting. After the abrogation of Article 370, it's the National Conference and the PDP, who kind of pushed the mainstream narrative into the separatist space. Who sort of started this battle with New Delhi. Not only started battle with New Delhi, but while they were battling it out with New Delhi, they overtly went into the separatist space of Kashmir. And now when they have entered into the separatist space, probably that the people who have bigger and better claims over that space have now probably come in the field,
Right.
and then probably it's their way of telling that now we'll teach you a lesson, So it's always funny when Omar Saab or when Mehbooba ji, are very sort of upset with these people coming in, but just don't realize that they are the people themselves who have went into that space, and now they are the losers, as you saw, 4 lakh people, 4.5 lakh people voting, and a former chief minister with a party like National Conference is being defeated by 2.5 lakh votes, So I think that's the most beautiful point, that if there's high turnout, if the government incentivizes the high turnout, there would be the real democracy. And what I've been really pleased with New Delhi over the last 1, 2, 3 years, I mean, of course, I have the grievances on part of the Delhi after August 5th, but what I've really been happy is that the political competition has been promoted in Jammu and Kashmir, and that's something that nobody can deny.
Right.
The political competition. Earlier that the one party, the two parties had the monopoly over the political space, but now you see elections in Kashmir as they are in the rest of the country. I was
Right.
last time somewhere in the Kerala, and you would see elections like these, everybody coming in. This is just. This you would see only in Kashmir, that when independents come in, when people like me come in, and then these parties say that, oh, these are the proxies, these are the people funded by the New Delhi. This is something that should end. The political competition is good. Democracy should blossom
Right.
in the coming years, and that's something good. That's something every Kashmiri should be happy for.
Fair enough, Danish. The monopoly of the families, the monopoly of NCA and PDP, the Muftis and the Abdullahs really breaking out there. More democracy thriving in the Kashmir Valley. But last comments to Ahmed Ali Fayyaz, really. Mr. Fayyaz, we've seen some parties trying to grab the space of the separatists. And now NCA and PDP really tasting the medicine that they have been giving the people, really. And now Engineer Rashid coming in to the picture and defeating Omar Abdullah like never before. But do you think that this kind of a political activity where Engineer Rashid comes in will also have an impact in the assembly polls? Because I had a chat with you earlier and you said that the independents may not actually be a big factor in these elections. Would you modify that statement now, or you still think that perhaps NC is very strong still in the Kashmir Valley and the BJP is probably going to emerge victorious in Jammu?
Assembly elections are being held in 3 phases in Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
We are holding the elections in the first phase today. As far as South Kashmir is concerned, we have 4 districts and 16 assembly segments there, and the rest of the 8 segments are in Jammu. So this Engineer Rashid and his party do not have any presence in Jammu part, Ramban. As far as South Kashmir is concerned, we have been tracking his election campaign from the day he was released. He generated some impact in Baramulla. Thereafter, he went to Kokarnag and he went to Anantnag. Some 3,000 people attended his rally at Thanabal. Thereafter, he went to Kokarnag. We have been watching these things. But once we analyze this in the context of all the dynamics which are before us, there are traditional parties which are contesting. We don't find a single constituency among the 16 where his people can take more than 10,000 votes, or they can be a threat to the PDP or Congress or National Conference. This is about South Kashmir. Yes, Jamaat Islami is emerging as a threat for some traditional politicians, including Muhammad Yusuf Tariq Amin, Kulgam, including this National Conference and PDP candidates in Shopian and Zanpura, including in some parts of Pulwama. But as of now, we don't see them as winners. There is a possibility of an independent candidate, Ejaz Mir, who is contesting as an independent candidate, who is a PDP rebel and now contesting from Vachi constituency, which is now Zainabpura, from where Mehbooba Mufti herself was elected in the year 2008. There is a possibility we put him at number one, but at other places, Jamaat Islami also does not have much of influence. So I can tell you, in the context of all the dynamics which are before us, I can tell you that neither Engineer Rashid nor Jamaat Islami are any force in South Kashmir. But we have to see if we can change the situation in Central Kashmir and North Kashmir. We have seen he addressed a mammoth rally in Kupwara yesterday. We are told that more than 10,000 people attended his rally. So it indicates that his influence is growing. But it is not settled on the lines of the Lok Sabha elections, because in the Lok Sabha elections, there are completely different dynamics, and nobody that time contested Engineer Rashid. Nobody spoke anything against him, neither Omar Abdullah, nor Sajad Low, nor the PDP candidate Mir Fayyaz. This time, everybody is contesting him. They are leveling allegations against him, as our panelists said. So he is in a hard battle with these people. But as far as his own constituency Langate is concerned, I have no doubts that he can yet again be returned from that place for the third time this time. But he has also influence in Kupwara proper and some other segments also. He has a very strong candidate in Birwa, that is in Badgam district, Nazir Ahmed Khan, who contested against Omar Abdullah in the year 2014 and lost by only 1,000 votes. So he has some candidates, but as of now, he has not been able to generate a wave where you can say that, look, independents are taking 15 seats, 20 seats, and we are going to change the traditional dynamics of the elections. It is not happening as of now, but it can happen in the days to come.
All right, fair enough. Engineer Rashid's influence over the J&K Assembly elections are something that we are monitoring very closely here at the TV9 Network's News 9 Live. We will be monitoring this very closely, but will he have an impact in South Kashmir is the big question. Of course, at his home bastion in the north, perhaps he could return to power with his family members and friends also contesting the elections. Danish Iqbal, Ahmed Ali Fayyaz, Rameez Makhdoomi, thank you very much for joining us today.